Who are you at the core of your being, beyond the many roles, titles, and identities that life has woven around you? This question, simple yet profound, invites us to look deeply inward, beyond the masks shaped by society, culture, and circumstance, to discover the essence of our true self. For many, this journey of self-discovery is filled with uncertainty and yearning. It calls us to pause, to step away from the busyness and noise of everyday life, and to turn our attention to the quiet space within where wisdom and clarity reside. The teachings of the Buddha offer a luminous guide for this inward journey. They remind us that what we often take as the self is not fixed or permanent, but rather a collection of ever-changing thoughts, feelings, and impressions. These are shaped by cravings, fears, and attachments, patterns that cloud our vision and bind us to suffering. At the same time, the Western psychologist Carl Jung, whose work may at first seem distant from ancient Eastern wisdom, provides a remarkable parallel. His exploration of the persona, the social mask we present to the world, and the shadow, the hidden or unconscious parts of ourselves, echoes the Buddhist recognition of illusion and the need for self-awareness. Though separated by geography and culture, both the Buddha and Jung beckon us to a shared inner landscape, a path toward spiritual growth, emotional clarity, and profound peace of mind. This path is not one of acquiring new knowledge or external achievements, but one of unlearning, releasing, and embracing mindfulness. Through mindful observation and compassionate acceptance, we begin to see the illusions that veil our true nature and learn to rest in what is genuine and unchanging beneath the surface. This process is not always easy. It requires courage to face the parts of ourselves we may have long ignored or denied, and patience to gently dismantle the layers of conditioning that society has placed upon us. Yet it is a path filled with the promise of liberation, freedom from the suffering caused by clinging to a false self and from the restless search for identity in things that inevitably pass away. In the moments ahead, we will explore this journey together. We will consider the barriers that prevent us from recognizing who we truly are, how to gently shed the societal masks that limit our authenticity, and how the insights of Jungian psychology and Buddhist philosophy intertwine to illuminate a way forward. This message holds particular resonance for those of us over 35, as life's transitions often invite deeper reflection on meaning, identity, and the nature of happiness. Whether you find yourself navigating change, seeking peace of mind, or yearning for spiritual growth, know that you are not alone. This space is created for you to listen with stillness, not hurriedly, but with the openness of a calm mind and a compassionate heart. Let each word be like a quiet breath, a gentle ripple nourishing the lake of your awareness, inviting you back home to yourself, where true peace dwells. Let us begin this journey with our first and most important question: what is holding you back from seeing your true self? This is where the inner path must start, with honest reflection and gentle awareness. The truth is, most of us live our lives wrapped in layers we did not choose, shaped by cultural expectations, personal fears, unresolved pain, and the deep need to belong. These layers can become so familiar that we rarely pause to ask if they reflect who we truly are. Instead, we identify with the roles we've been given or have assumed: the parent, the partner, the worker, the achiever, the caretaker, the one who always smiles, or the one who must be strong. These roles, while often useful or necessary in daily life, can quietly become cages if we cling to them too tightly or if we fear who we might be without them. The Buddha referred to this mistaken view of identity as sakkaya-daiha, the false belief in a permanent, independent self. He taught that what we commonly call the self is in fact a process, not a fixed entity, a changing stream of thoughts, emotions, sensations, and conditions that arise and pass away. But we suffer because we grasp at this process, trying to make it solid. We create a self out of impermanence, and then we suffer when life doesn't match the story we've built. This is the first veil obscuring the true self: attachment to ideas, roles, emotions, status, and even pain. We fear letting go because we think that if we stop identifying with these things, we will disappear. But as the Buddha said, just as a flame does not cling to the wick, let the wise not cling to form, feeling, perception, formation, or consciousness. In other words, liberation begins where clinging ends. Another powerful force that holds us back is aversion. The refusal to face what feels unpleasant within us. Perhaps there are parts of your past you would rather not remember, or aspects of your personality you silently judge, your anger, your jealousy, your sadness. In Buddhist teaching, aversion is one of the three poisons, along with greed and delusion, that fuel the cycle of suffering. When we avoid these inner shadows, they do not disappear. Instead, they hide in the unconscious, subtly influencing our choices and reactions. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we reject or deny because we believe they are unacceptable. But what is rejected cannot be healed. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The Buddha, too, taught that only through mindful awareness can we understand the roots of suffering and dissolve them. So we must turn toward what we fear, not to be overwhelmed, but to observe it with compassion and wisdom. The third barrier to seeing your true self is the influence of social conditioning. From childhood, we are taught who to be polite, successful, likable, productive, strong, beautiful, and so on. We learn quickly what behaviors are rewarded and which are punished. Over time, we craft a persona, a social mask that helps us fit in but can also become a prison. We smile when we want to cry. We agree when we want to speak. We achieve when we want to rest. The more we live by others' expectations, the more distant we become from our inner truth. As Jung observed, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And yet, this privilege requires courage, the courage to step away from who you were told to be and listen to the quiet voice of your own soul. The Buddha encouraged such inner listening. He did not demand blind obedience to tradition. Instead, he said, do not go by reports, traditions, or hearsay. When you know for yourselves that something is unwholesome, abandon it. When you know for yourselves that something is wholesome, undertake it. This is the invitation to inner authority, to mindfulness, to direct knowing. But to cultivate this knowing, we must slow down. And that is another obstacle, distraction. In modern life, we are surrounded by noise, external and internal. Our attention is scattered across screens, responsibilities, and thoughts that never seem to stop. We are constantly stimulated but rarely still. In this restlessness, there is no space to see deeply. The Buddha compared the restless mind to a monkey swinging from branch to branch, grasping here, jumping there, never landing. And yet, it is only in stillness that truth reveals itself. When the mind is calm, like a quiet pond, we begin to see what lies beneath. We notice the repetitive thought patterns, the emotional habits, the inner voice that constantly judges or compares. And slowly, gently, we begin to disidentify from these patterns. We begin to realize, I am not this thought. I am not this mood. I am the one who is aware. This realization marks the beginning of freedom. But to come to this place, we must practice mindfulness, the steady, non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. The Buddha placed immense importance on mindfulness, calling it the path to the deathless. It is through mindfulness that we come face to face with the illusions that keep us small. We see how often we act out of habit, fear, or the need for approval. We see how we avoid silence because we are afraid of what we might feel. And yet, in that very silence lies the doorway to the self. Not the small, constructed self, but the vast, open awareness that witnesses all things. Finally, perhaps the greatest barrier to seeing your true self is fear, a quiet, persistent fear of who we really are beneath all the roles and masks. What if we're not enough? What if we're too much? What if we are truly alone? These questions linger in the heart of every seeker. And yet, Buddhism offers a gentle answer: you are not your fear. You are not your past. You are not your name, your age, your appearance, or your story. You are awareness itself, open, luminous, and free. The Buddha said, in this very body, with its perception and consciousness, I declare there is the world, the origin of the world, the cessation of the world, and the path leading to the cessation of the world. In other words, you do not need to look elsewhere to find your true self. You simply need to look deeply, here and now, with courage and compassion. So pause for a moment. Feel your breath. Gently turn your gaze inward. Whatever you find, welcome it. Do not push it away or grasp it. Just observe. The journey of seeing your true self does not begin with trying to become something new. It begins with seeing clearly what you are not, and letting it go. In this letting go, there is peace. In this awareness, there is freedom. And in this stillness, your true self begins to shine, not as something separate, but as the very space in which all things arise and pass away. Quiet, vast, and deeply alive. Now that we have gently explored what holds us back from seeing our true self, let us move forward into the second part of our journey. How can you break free from societal masks and live authentically? This question is not simply about changing how we appear to the world, it is about returning to the truth of who we are, beneath the layers of performance and pretense. Each of us has grown up learning how to survive in a world that often values appearances more than inner truth. We are taught to fit in, to be acceptable, to achieve, to be agreeable, and to meet standards that may not reflect our true nature. These expectations, repeated over time, form what Jung called the persona, a social mask we create to navigate life. Buddhism speaks of a similar illusion, built not from truth, but from attachment and ignorance. This constructed identity becomes the cause of suffering when we mistake it for our essence. The Buddha never encouraged artificiality or conformity. Instead, he invited each person to walk the path of wisdom, grounded in direct experience, self-awareness, and ethical living. To live authentically is to live without deception, especially the self-deception that tells us we are only what others see. But how do we remove these masks without fear? The first step is to cultivate mindfulness, not just as a meditation practice, but as a way of living. Mindfulness brings attention to the present moment, to our reactions, to our patterns, and most importantly, to the subtle ways we abandon ourselves in favor of pleasing others. The Buddha taught, when one dwells with a mind devoid of craving, devoid of hatred, and devoid of delusion, then one sees things as they truly are. When we begin to observe our daily thoughts and actions with this clarity, we notice how often we say yes when we mean no, how often we stay silent when something within us longs to speak, how often we pretend to be fine just to maintain harmony. These behaviors are not wrong, they are human. But over time, they disconnect us from our own inner guidance. Breaking free from societal masks means slowly, patiently returning to that guidance. It means asking yourself with honesty, what do I truly value? What do I deeply feel? What brings me peace, and what drains me? These are not questions society often encourages us to ask, but they are essential if we are to walk the path of authenticity. The Buddha taught the importance of sila, or ethical conduct, not as rigid morality, but as a foundation for inner peace. When our actions align with our values, when our words reflect our truth, and when our intentions are rooted in compassion rather than fear, we begin to experience a quiet inner strength. We no longer need to wear a mask to feel safe, because we are standing on the ground of our own integrity. This does not mean we reject the world or become indifferent to others. On the contrary, authentic living allows us to connect more deeply, because our interactions are no longer filtered through fear or performance. We are not pretending to be kind, we are kind, from a place of sincerity. We are not performing strength, we are grounded, because we know who we are. One of the most powerful tools for peeling away the societal mask is the practice of noble silence. In silence, the outer noise falls away and we begin to hear the quiet truth within. The Buddha often retreated into solitude, not as an escape, but as a way to deepen awareness. In the same way, creating moments of quiet, whether through meditation, mindful walking, or simply sitting in stillness, allows us to hear the voice beneath the roles. That voice may be timid at first. It may have been silenced for years. But with gentle attention, it begins to speak. It speaks of what matters to you, what you long for, what you are ready to release. Listen to that voice. It is not selfish to honor it. It is sacred. Journaling can also be a powerful ally. When you write without censoring, without editing for someone else's approval, you begin to uncover thoughts and feelings that have long been hidden under the mask. Write as if no one will read it. Write as if your soul is speaking. Over time, patterns will emerge, truths that long to be lived. But even as we uncover our truth, fear may arise. Fear of being judged, rejected, or misunderstood. This is natural. We are social beings, and we crave belonging. The key is not to eliminate this fear, but to move forward with courage and compassion. The Buddha never denied the presence of fear, he taught us how to meet it with awareness. He said, to understand everything is to forgive everything. Start with yourself. Forgive the times you betrayed your truth to keep the peace. Forgive the years spent wearing masks because you didn't know another way. And gently, day by day, choose differently. Speak a truth, however small. Make one decision that honors your inner knowing. Say no when you mean no. Rest when your body is tired. Express your joy without shame. These acts, though simple, are radical steps on the path to freedom. Another essential aspect of living authentically is the practice of right view, seeing reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. This includes seeing ourselves clearly, not only our strengths, but also our wounds, our flaws, our conditioning. Not with judgment, but with loving awareness. Jung said that, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration. Similarly, the Buddha's path is not about perfection, it is about understanding. When we can see ourselves completely, we stop trying to become someone else. We relax into the person we already are. And in that relaxation, something beautiful arises, peace of mind. You begin to realize that authenticity is not a goal, it is your original nature. It is not something you have to create, it is something you uncover. And when you live from that space, you no longer chase approval. You no longer measure your worth by productivity or popularity. You begin to find contentment in simplicity, presence, and connection. You begin to taste what the Buddha called sukha, true happiness, unconditioned by external circumstances. And perhaps most importantly, you become a light for others. When you live authentically, you give silent permission for others to do the same. Your presence becomes a teaching. Your peace becomes a refuge. So ask yourself today, not with urgency, but with gentleness, what mask am I ready to remove? What part of myself longs to be seen, heard, and lived? Begin there. Trust that this journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. With every breath of awareness, you come home to yourself. Now that we have explored what holds us back from seeing our true self and how to begin shedding the societal masks we wear, let us turn to our third reflection: how do Jungian psychology and Buddhism intertwine to illuminate this path? At first glance, Carl Jung, the 20th century Swiss psychiatrist, and the Buddha, the ancient sage of India, may appear to stand on opposite shores of human thought, separated by time, geography, and philosophical language. Yet, when we listen deeply, we find that their teachings meet in the still waters of the inner world, echoing many of the same truths about the nature of suffering, the self, and the path to wholeness. Both traditions begin with the understanding that much of human suffering arises from the unconscious, whether we call it ignorance, as in Buddhism, or the shadow, as in Jungian psychology. For Jung, the unconscious consists of the parts of ourselves we do not yet know, hidden desires, forgotten memories, unacknowledged fears. And these repressed elements shape our behavior until we bring them into the light of awareness. Similarly, the Buddha taught that suffering is perpetuated by avijja, ignorance of the true nature of reality, and that liberation is possible only through vipassana, or insight meditation, which illuminates the hidden patterns of craving, aversion, and delusion that drive our thoughts and actions. Both paths encourage us to turn inward with courage and honesty, to become observers of our own mind. Jung described the process of individuation as the unfolding journey toward becoming whole, integrating all parts of the psyche into a harmonious self. In the Buddhist path, particularly in Theravada and Mahayana teachings, a similar transformation occurs as we move from fragmentation to unity, not by creating a stronger ego, but by realizing the emptiness and interdependence of all things. In Buddhist terms, this is the realization of anatta, non-self, not as nihilism, but as a profound liberation from the illusion of separateness. Jung saw the self as the totality of the conscious and unconscious mind, and he warned that identifying solely with the ego leads to imbalance. The Buddha also warned against identification with the ego, or atta, as it leads to dukkha, or suffering. Both perspectives invite us to shift our center of gravity from the ego toward a deeper, wiser awareness. Meditation, in this sense, becomes the meeting point of East and West. For Jung, introspection and dream analysis were means of accessing the unconscious. For the Buddha, meditation was the direct path to seeing reality as it is, through sustained attention, clarity, and equanimity. In both systems, we are asked to watch, not to judge, to witness, not to suppress. The Buddhist practitioner observes the rising and passing of thoughts, sensations, and emotions through mindfulness, sati, and gradually realizes that these mental formations are impermanent and not self. Jungian psychology encourages a similar form of inner observation, where symbols, archetypes, and dreams are understood as messages from the deeper layers of the psyche, clues that point us toward healing and integration. Interestingly, Jung himself had a deep respect for Eastern philosophy. He regarded Buddhist meditation not as escapism but as an advanced form of psychological work, what he called an introverted technique of the highest order. He admired the clarity and discipline of Buddhist mind training and recognized that it offered a direct route to what he termed the self, with a capital S, the unifying, transcendent principle of the psyche. In many ways, the self in Jungian psychology and the awakened mind in Buddhism serve similar functions. Both represent the innermost truth of who we are when illusions fall away. Yet the language they use differs. Jung speaks of integration, the Buddha speaks of liberation. Jung emphasizes the wholeness of the individual. The Buddha emphasizes the freedom from individuality. And yet, they are not in contradiction. Rather, they are two mirrors reflecting the same moon from different angles. Where Jung sought to reconcile the fragmented self through integration, Buddhism goes a step further, not only integrating, but dissolving the false boundaries that create fragmentation in the first place. One of the most beautiful connections between these two paths is the compassionate embrace of the shadow. For Jung, the shadow is the hidden or denied part of ourselves, often containing emotions or impulses that we have labeled as unacceptable. He believed that to become whole, we must turn toward this shadow, not with judgment, but with openness. This aligns closely with the Buddha's instruction to cultivate metta, loving kindness, not only for others but for ourselves, including our flaws and our fears. The Buddha did not ask us to perfect ourselves, but to understand and embrace our humanity with wisdom and compassion. He knew that what we resist only grows stronger, and what we accept with mindfulness begins to transform. In this way, both Jung and the Buddha offer a path of deep reconciliation, between the seen and unseen, the known and unknown. For those of us in the second half of life, perhaps beyond 35, 50, or even 70, this integration becomes especially important. Jung observed that the first half of life is focused on building identity, while the second half is meant for deepening the soul's journey. Likewise, the Buddha taught that regardless of age, the Dhamma is always accessible, always relevant, always capable of bringing peace to a restless heart. In later life, when the outer achievements lose their urgency, we are invited to turn inward, to ask not what we do, but who we are. This is the perfect terrain for both Buddhist practice and Jungian reflection to flourish. Together, they invite us to sit in silence, to observe the mind, to welcome the shadow, to release the false self, and to rest in what is real. As we begin to understand the interplay between Jungian psychology and Buddhism, we see that the union of these two traditions does not dilute either one, it deepens both. They are not two separate teachings but two wings of the same bird, carrying us toward wholeness and liberation. They remind us that the path to inner peace is not about escaping the world, but about understanding it from the inside out. It is not about rejecting who we are, but seeing clearly through the illusions that obscure our view. It is not about fixing ourselves, but waking up to the truth that beneath all the layers, we were never broken to begin with. As we sit with these reflections, let them settle in your heart. Let them remind you that your inner world is not a mistake to be corrected, but a mystery to be gently unfolded. In the sacred meeting between Jung's depth psychology and the Buddha's timeless wisdom, we are offered a lantern for the dark places within, a lantern that reveals not only what we fear, but also the quiet, luminous truth that has always been waiting for us beneath the surface. As we gently arrive at the end of today's journey, we are invited to pause, to breathe, and to softly gather the wisdom we've explored together, like drawing a warm shawl around the shoulders on a cool, quiet morning. We began by asking one of life's most tender questions: who am I beneath the layers the world has placed upon me? And through the calm lens of Buddhist teachings and the insightful reflections of Jungian psychology, we've walked through the veils that obscure the truth of who we are. We've seen how clinging to false identities, avoiding inner shadows, and performing for society's gaze can prevent us from knowing peace. We've reflected on how mindfulness, non-attachment, and inner silence offer us the tools to gently remove the masks we wear and reconnect with our true nature, not as a fixed self, but as spacious awareness, unfolding moment by moment. Along this path, we discovered that the Buddha's teachings do not require us to become someone else, they ask us to simply observe, to see things as they are, and to walk with wisdom and compassion. Carl Jung's insights into the persona and shadow harmonize with this inner work, guiding us to reclaim the parts of ourselves we have hidden and bring them into wholeness, not through control, but through acceptance. These teachings, though born from different traditions, share a quiet truth, that liberation is not found in adding more to ourselves, but in gently letting go, of illusion, of fear, of the need to be anything other than fully present. And for those of us in the second half of life, as the world becomes quieter and the soul speaks more clearly, this journey inward becomes not just meaningful, it becomes essential. This is the age of spiritual growth, of aging with grace, of learning how to be happy alone without feeling lonely, and of discovering that true peace of mind does not come from the outside, but from the stillness we cultivate within. If there is one message to carry with you from this video, let it be this: you are not your titles, your roles, your past, or your pain. You are not your accomplishments or your mistakes. You are not even your thoughts. Beneath all of that, there is something timeless and whole within you, something the Buddha pointed to when he spoke of the unconditioned, something Jung alluded to when he spoke of the self. It is not far away. It is here. And the journey home to that truth begins not with striving, but with seeing. Not with doing, but with being. So let this be your gentle reminder: slow down, observe your thoughts with kindness, release what no longer serves, and trust the quiet voice within. The path is already beneath your feet. Walk it mindfully, and your true self will reveal itself, not as a concept, but as a lived experience, peaceful, compassionate, and free. Now, before you go, I warmly invite you to take part in something deeper than just watching, sharing. In the comments below, tell us, what part of your true self have you been hiding? What societal mask are you ready to let go of? What resonated with you most in today's reflection? Whether you are on the path of healing, searching, or simply beginning to wake up, your story matters here. This channel, Mindful Pathway Media, is a space for honest conversation, compassionate listening, and spiritual growth rooted in Buddhist wisdom. Your words may offer comfort to someone else walking the same quiet path. So please, don't hesitate, leave a comment, share your thoughts, your feelings, even your struggles. Let us grow together in mindfulness. And if this message brought you clarity or peace, consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with someone who may need this gentle reminder today. Your support helps this mindful community blossom.